At quite possibly the worst time it could have happened, Dave Filoni is once again singing the praises of Rian Johnson.
This isn't the biggest bag over the head punch in the face I ever...
Howdy and hello to everybody out there. It's fantastic to see you once again. We are explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve, something that seems to be escaping all of those who work for Disney. It is a creeping virus that apparently is infecting even the best at Lucasfilm. This time, our poor, previously deeply loved and adored Dave Filoni. All right, joining us to talk about this one is going to be Force of Light and coach of Echo Base Network. Welcome aboard. Welcome back to both of you.
Good to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, one day we're going to cover a topic that's fun and positive. This one is fun but not positive. But we got to do what we got to do. And let me say this too. So there's been some criticism out there on the web of various people. In fact, I saw Paul Chatto having to deal with this, where he was saying that people had been critical that he was not as big a fan as he could have been on the first episode of the third season of The Mandalorian. And so, people are saying, oh, well, you're just trying to chase clicks. You're just trying to chase the algorithm. And they're criticizing a lot of people, a lot of YouTubers. And I just want to say that, we just try to give the truth here. That's what we're trying to do each and every day. YouTube doesn't pay enough to get on here and deceive people. That's not what we're about. Mm-hmm. So if you like content such as that, where we're trying to tell the truth, we're trying to explain entertainment, click the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms. When you click it, we're talking about that notification bell. We covet your comments. Drop one down below. All right, this one is from The Hollywood Reporter by Brian Davids. That's important. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Title, The Mandalorian EP David Filoni, that's his executive producer, by the way, talks Grogu's future, Ahsoka, and shadowing Rian Johnson. Shadow is well said right there. The busy Star Wars vet who is juggling animation and live action projects has felt himself grow over the past few years. That tends to mean you need to go on a diet, by the way, folks. When I feel myself grow, I always know, cut out the carbs. There's a magnitude difference between what I'm doing now, he says. All right, so Brian Davids. Before we dive into this, guys, let's take a look real quick at Brian Davids, because there's a connective tissue here for Brian Davids that I'm not sure others are covering in their videos. So let's take a look at this. Why? It is The Hollywood Reporter, February 1st, Brian Davids. And oh, Brian, he was doing the Daisy Ridley Talks Her Indie Sometimes I Think About Dying Producing in Her Star Wars Future. And this just so happens to be the article where she talks about the potential for coming back and playing Rey, and where the writer seems to have information about that not every typical person would have. This is the same person yet again. How about that? Seems like Brian Davids has a little bit of an inside track with Lucasfilm. Echo Base, you guys got an inside track with Lucasfilm yet?
Not yet. They don't like criticism very much, so we are not on their shield list.
Well, phooey. Force of Light, though, surely they like you. They'll give you these inside tips just like Brian Davids is getting.
No, I only get shout outs by Fox News.
That is great. And by the way, we had to cover that in a video because that was so much fun that you were sitting at the top. I mean, that was one of their top articles, and I'm reading one of the top articles, because I'm covering entertainment and they're covering something that I need to talk about. And I'm reading this article, and like just a few paragraphs in, Force of Light entertainment is discussing blah, 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 blah. And I said, wow, how about that?
You said, I know her.
That's right. I know her. She's important. All right. So let's dive into the substance of this. We've had the most fun right now from this video, folks. So if you want to jump out right now. No, we'll keep having fun. All right, here we go. When Kathleen Kennedy first took the reins of Lucasfilm in 2012, one of her first orders of business was to prepare Star Wars scholar Dave Filoni for live action storytelling. Does anybody here believe that?
Can we just revisit the phrase Star Wars scholar?
You don't see that on many business cards, do you?
What's interesting there, Pro, is that Dave Filoni, I don't know if it's going to hit it in this interview or if it's in others, because all these things are coming to the surface right now. But Filoni recently said in the last couple of days that when Kathleen Kennedy first came to Lucasfilm, one of the first things that she did was reached out to Filoni and was kind of nudging him to do live action directing. So he credits her with prepping him for that.
Which would seem to indicate, and who can blame him? We're not trying to be mean here. We're not out to be nasty, but it would seem that if she gives him that kind of opportunity, he's going to have significant loyalty to her. Is that fair to say? I mean, that's how I would respond if somebody gave me a great opportunity. I would consider them to be a beloved part of my career, my life, the opportunities I've been given in life.
She's the boss, without question.
She is the boss. All right, let's keep going. Although I do have to say, I think surely that's hyperbolic in terms of that being one of the very first things that she did. I just can't imagine that Dave Filoni was on the top of her list of things to do. I mean, I can buy the Force is female, but anyway. Filoni has long been the steward of Lucasfilm Animation, as Star Wars mastermind George Lucas not only hired him, but also mentored him during their run together on the animated series, The Clone Wars. It goes on to talk about the things that Dave Filoni has been doing. Before Kennedy paired Filoni with the Mandalorian creator Jon Favreau, she had him shadow Star Wars filmmakers on set, including J.J. Abrams. I'm sure that he learned how to do a lot of lens flares, and Rian Johnson, the latter of whom Filoni singles out as especially helpful. Here we go. Rian was the one who shoved me up front. By the way, that is actually a criminal offense in most states, folks. Sticking lenses in my hand. Sounds more like J.J. Abrams. And really getting me immersed in it, Filoni tells The Hollywood Reporter. And so I still talk with him to this day. He's obviously a very talented filmmaker. And I was just very fortunate to be in such an environment where I could sit and listen and learn. All right. Let me give my little thought on this, and then I want to just hand it off to you two to take this to a new level of high that I can't reach. Star Wars is in a spot right now where, and I've been documenting this, you all have been documenting this, Star Wars is not in a good place. It's in a really bad place. Nobody in their right mind could think that Star Wars is doing well and that this is what Disney wants for that franchise. And you can broaden that out to Lucasfilm. If you think about it, Lucasfilm they just wrapped up with Willow. It never charted on the top 10 of any subcategory on Nielsen.
Kind of unheard, like outside the first 2 weeks, like I saw no one talk about it. Like I forgot it was going. They
only talked about it because it was so bad.
Yeah.
But it couldn't even generate hate clicks, hate watching. That's what She-Hulk, that's how She-Hulk managed to get in a few of the subcategories on occasion. Willow couldn't even do that. Okay, The Bad Batch, nowhere to be found on any of the subcategories, top 10 for Nielsen. If you look at the fact that they don't have any theatrical releases, if you look at the fact that by and large, it feels like people have abandoned everything outside The Mandalorian when it comes to Disney+. And then also, I don't know what's going to happen in terms of viewership for this third season of The Mandalorian. But I feel like, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like this first episode of season 3 did not generate the levels of excitement from the past. I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm not trying to generate clicks. Remember, that's the criticism, that we're just trying to bemoan Star Wars because that's what drives the viewership. But honestly, I mean, it was just okay. It was just middling.
Well, it was very repetitive of what they already showed in the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, and I didn't care for stuff like suddenly the meth gator jumping out of a puddle of water. I didn't care for that kind of stuff.
And let's live right next to it.
Oh, yeah. And then, well, I mean, it's so bad. We won't even talk about it. But anyway, my basic premise here is that if you were going to praise Rian Johnson, who, let's just be honest, the decline of Star Wars begins at The Last Jedi. That's where the fall off begins. That's where the fan base becomes divided. That's where Disney's investment goes south. You can love the movie. I don't know many people who really do, but you can love the movie, but you have to acknowledge that is where something changed. People, even if they were skeptical about the direction of The Force Awakens, it was still extraordinarily popular and people were excited for the next movie. And then that excitement was gone. This is literally the worst time in the world for Dave Filoni to come out and praise Rian Johnson, because Star Wars is not in a good place. And Rian Johnson is the one who put it there, ultimately. And now Dave Filoni, at a time when everybody's concerned, hey, does all this lead back to the sequel trilogy? Are we just going, is all of this pointless because we hate that stuff and we don't want to go back there? Is all of this Disney Plus just taking us back to it? Well, Dave Filoni is praising Rian Johnson. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to praise him this way. It's fine to say he gave me a shot, he taught me, all that kind of stuff. But why would you go on and talk about how you're still talking to him to this day? It's only going to make the people who are deeply concerned say, and done. Echo Base, thoughts on that one?
Well, couple things. One, with Filoni, they are really trying to create a narrative right now that where we will see him as a worthy showrunner. We haven't seen him as a showrunner. And there's absolutely no question that Disney, Lucasfilm especially, all their eggs are in the Mandalorian's basket right now. It's the average Mandalorian is good for Lucasfilm. Average Mandalorian is a success. I would go as far to say there hasn't been anything else Star Wars live action in terms of the small screen that's been a success like The Mandalorian. Some people think Andor, that's fine. The Book of Boba Fett and Kenobi certainly were not. The Bad Batch certainly is not. So what is Filoni?
Well, we have yet to see what happens with season 3, because everything you're talking about that has not reached those same highs. They're post second season. They're post the firing of Gina Carano and the attempt to humiliate her. And it's hard to imagine, maybe even I underestimated the damage that did to Disney. I think this is devastating to them in ways that I didn't anticipate. I thought that even though that was a major problem and it drove a lot of people away, I think it's bigger than what I had thought.
Yeah. Well, what I was saying, Pro, was that they need Ahsoka to be in the same realm as Mandalorian in terms of viewership, in terms of passion and success. And who's the showrunner? It's Filoni.
So this is building the narrative, then, is what you're saying.
There's absolutely no question about it. And that's why you're hearing all this. Look at everything Favreau's saying. Favreau is heaping the praise on Filoni right now all over the place. There's so much going on.
Think about this. So Brian David's the writer here. He's setting the narrative for Rey's return to Star Wars. Now he's setting the narrative for Dave Filoni and Ahsoka. That's your thesis here, and I agree. I'm fully on board with that. I don't think that these attempts to create a narrative, I don't think that they're going to actually reach the people that Disney needs to reach in order to bring them back into the fold and care at all about Star Wars. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's the interesting part. It's like everything that they're saying, like Filoni to be praising Rian Johnson, that's talking specifically to the fans that they already have. You've got those people. It's people.
They're not enough.
That's exactly right. And he needs to be talking to fans like us. Now, what would be better is if he continued that statement and said something to the effect of, Rian Johnson's had some really big success, but I learned from people's successes and their failures. Maybe say, if you watched Rian Johnson as much as you say that you did, then you certainly learned also what not to do. And
yes.
If we ever get some of that, that would be a lot. That would mean a lot for the fandom, in my opinion.
So, Michelle, there are a couple of things that I take away from this. One of the things that I take away is that if he's friends enough with Rian Johnson that they're still in communications regularly, then I see no way that he's going to betray Rian Johnson and do anything that retcons The Last Jedi. And therefore, I think that the Luke that we're watching, maybe we'll see him again, maybe we won't, right? It seems to be the only way they can prop up The Mandalorian, honestly. People think it's Baby Yoda. People think that it's Din. It's not. It's Luke. That's what's driven those ratings. So maybe we'll get more Luke, maybe we won't. But whatever the case may be, I think the Luke that we're seeing in Dave Filoni's mind is the same Luke that we're going to see in The Last Jedi. should we be tortured to have to watch that movie again. Do you think that's true?
I would hope not. I mean, because it's like, yes, you might have learned how to work a camera and do stuff like that with Rian Johnson, but your main claim to fame is being George Lucas's basically other son. So he has to know that George Lucas hated what they did. He has to know that. So do you betray like your surrogate father or your new kind of buddy?
Yeah, but then why would he not just say something like, you know, that I learned a lot from Rian Johnson in terms of filmmaking, and stop there? Why would you go further? I mean, even if you're besties, even if you're over there having sleepovers, you know, you get out your Luke Skywalker sleeping bags, you know, with the milk on his beard and everything, and you're hanging out with Rian Johnson. Even if that's what you're doing, why would you say it?
I mean, I don't think it's wise, but I don't know. I mean, maybe that's what he does. Maybe that's what he does. But what's weird about this, and okay, what's weird too about because there was also the statement this week by Filoni about Luke wasn't a Jedi, and it's like, you know, come on, as they quote him, Star Wars scholar. Yes, he is. Like, I can quote it. Yoda says, when I'm gone, the less of the Jedi you'll be. So I am a Jedi. No, you must confront Vader. Well, he confronted Vader.
Yes.
So I think,
Coach, what did you make? Coach, what did you make of that comment from Filoni? Because that's one that maybe we're just taking it the wrong way. What do you think he meant?
So the really interesting thing about that is that Filoni has said it both ways. He in another interview, he talked about how he always saw Luke as a Jedi from the very first time that he saw him, like even going back to episode 4 or what we call Star Wars. So it's kind of like it's so big, maybe some common elements escape him. I saw a really good comment from somebody that said Filoni needs to go back and watch the original films and maybe get out of all this these little nooks and crannies.
Well, that's his expertise, right? His expertise is to figure out a way to find those ways to weave and fold what's been done, so that in the case of the prequel trilogy, he was able to make that better, I suppose, in the minds of many. But I don't see how they can rescue the stinker that is the sequel trilogy. I don't see any redemption opportunity for that.
So here's another indicator of their plan, Pro. Favreau has recently said in the last 2 or 3 days that they have absolutely no hurry. They're in no hurry. He's already talking about Mandalorian season 5. He's talking about Mandalorian being around for a long time. Well, if the Mandalorian's going to be around for a long time, then so is the New Republic era. What's a part of that? Ahsoka's a part of that. Boba Fett's a part of that. And any other shows that they end up actually doing will be a part of that era. I think that they're trying to stay away from the sequels, just like J.J. Abrams tried to stay away from his problem of Luke Skywalker when he did Episode 7.
Well, so there's also a business and financial reason for that in favor of Jon Favreau. And I talked about this in a previous video. I don't know if you saw it, but after the first season of The Mandalorian, Disney Plus saw a tremendous growth in subscribers. And so Disney, knowing that this was an arms race with Netflix, they were willing to do anything to get more Mandalorian from Jon Favreau. So he had a contract for 1 season. After that first season, Jon Favreau, I am told, received the greatest contract you could ever hope for, except not including a merchandising royalty deal like George Lucas always had. But other than that, he got just a fantastic sweetheart deal. One of those deals that he received, I was told, is that he has some degree of creative control over his characters so long as the characters that he created are part of an ongoing series. So the longer that he holds on to that, the more leverage he has to sort of lord that over everybody at Lucasfilm. And what I mean is, so we talked about that Lucasfilm wants Rey and Grogu together for obvious merchandising reasons, right? But if you're Jon Favreau, then you're looking at this and saying, well, I don't know that I want to hand this over to the people who made Solo a Star Wars story, right? Because if I hand it over to a director that they can do whatever they want with it, they can do whatever script they want, and then my little Grogu character is wiped out in some way. or they tell something that I'm not cool with. And so, one, as long as Favreau maintains controls of those characters, he's making a ton of money because his contract is per episode and per movie. Two, if they want to use those characters, he can actually say to them, yes, you can use the character, but I'm going to be an executive producer and I'm going to have creative control over the direction of the film. So I think you're exactly right. But I think there's also this financial tug of war going on behind the scenes. And I kind of wonder, you know, you've clearly got Kathleen Kennedy, you've got Jon Favreau, you've got Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is right now saddling up as hard as he can to Kathleen Kennedy in this article. He's loving Rian Johnson, which, you know, God bless him. And he's loving Kathleen Kennedy. I don't know that he says a whole lot that's just ultra positive about Jon Favreau. And I wonder if Favreau has ruffled some feathers trying to maintain control with that contract that he has. Michelle, any thoughts on that?
That's interesting because, yeah, I was just thinking how it's like Filoni was, I mean, and I mean, he still shows himself as buddies with Jon Favreau, but it almost seems wiser to kind of buddy up to Jon at this point. Like, if the rumor, I mean, I just don't think Kathleen will be around that much longer. I really don't. And it's wise. It's wise, even if you don't really like your boss, you know, to give him a little bit of.
Sure. Why would you not?
Say something nice, whatever you can say. But yeah, it is interesting that, yeah, kind of giving her praise and, well, I mean, and she has given him an opportunity. I mean, that, you know, if anything else, she has given him that. But yeah, the Rian Johnson, I mean, maybe they're just buddies. And that's, I was going to say this earlier. Does Filoni ever strike you? He almost strikes you as the type person, if you hear him talk, he's very kind of like, he's kind of theoretical and analytical. Like, I almost see him being like someone who's just throwing out philosophical. He's like throwing out, sometimes he throws out random stuff almost to argue.
Maybe his inner voice is happening out loud.
Yes. And like sometimes he's almost thinking through something like Luke wasn't a Jedi, and he throws that out there. And then the other time, I thought Luke was a Jedi from the first. That
quiet voice that we usually filter out and say, no, don't say that out loud. You're going to be quoted.
Yeah. I don't know him that well, but yeah, that's not really the praise that basically Rian Johnson, his name should almost be blackballed from people's lips at Lucasfilm right now. Like, that's how bad it is. I'm sorry, it's that bad. And they just he needs to stay away from it.
You know, the interesting thing there is that he has to address it because he's about to be a showrunner for Ahsoka that's coming, and it's already so well documented the time that he spent. He said all these things before. Oh. You know, he said all these things a few years ago. So it's like, it's almost like he has some kind of foreseeability. He knows that before Ahsoka comes, the fandom's going to be going, well, you know, here's Dave. You know, Dave was under the tutelage of Rian Johnson. All that has already been, you know, out and about. So
Coach, here's what I don't understand, or maybe I do, and I just think that it's foolishness. But so I get in the past him having said these things, and I understand the people who'd say, well, this is not newsworthy. He's already said them. It's newsworthy to me because we're now 3 years into the future. We all know how badly it damaged Star Wars. Why keep saying it? And Coach, I want to give you the last word. And go ahead, Michelle. What do you got?
Well, I was going to say on that, you know, a good point is, why would you go back there now? Like, setting yourself up as a showrunner, you've worked with Jon Favreau side by side since 2017. Like whenever they started planning out the Mandalorian and stuff. And Jon Favreau has let him direct. Why not just be like all the stuff you've learned under Jon Favreau, who people still do like thus far, even after the Book of Boba Fett? Why not throw yourself that direction instead of the direction no one likes?
Sure.
Or
Coach, so I want to give Coach the last word, but Coach, I want to hit on a particular area here. Explain to the audience. We all know that this is what he said. We all know now that he's buddies with Rian Johnson, continuing to be buddies. They're still in talks. In your opinion, so I'm trying to look at this from a business standpoint now, right? Because I'm looking at Disney Plus. We did a video 2 days on Disney Plus, myself and Jonas J. Campbell, looking at how badly the ratings have, I mean, honestly, they've cratered. And everything is riding on Disney Plus with the Walt Disney Company. That is the sea upon which all the tributaries of entertainment flow into. Star Wars is pathetic on Disney Plus right now. So here's my question to you. How badly does this damage Star Wars in terms of the general population, normies, kids, etc.? Like, what percentage does Disney lose if they stick with the sequel trilogy, if they double down on Rey, if they double down on the New Republic era going into the sequel trilogy, and there is no retcon, there is no diverging timelines? What's the percentage cost, in your opinion, of the audience they could have?
They'll never win us over like they could.
What if they send you? What if they send you like a little beignet, or maybe I don't know, a little cheese ball, maybe?
Well, hey, hold on now. No, they'll never win us over if they could, and there's very little that they could do that would generate some type of healing for the fandom, especially the fandom who are original trilogy fans. If you're let's just say if you're 30 and up, if you're 30 and up, you know, I'm in my mid 40s. I definitely consider myself an original trilogy fan.
You look like mid 30s, Coach. You look like mid 30s. You're making everybody look bad out there.
There's very little that they can do to generate healing for us. Like, a couple things that they could do is obviously the retcon. Give us an alternate timeline. Give us a movie or a show where we see the original cast, Han, Luke, and Leia, on screen together. So in terms of the number that you say, Pro, I don't know. I have a fear, I guess, and I'm speaking like, so I get caught up, and I think we all do, like, for people who love Star Wars, there's fan brain, and then there's critic brain, you know, and I kind of go back and forth between those when I talk about this. Critic brain, there's basically no chance. Like, I just don't see this working out in the long run. That's why this New Republic era that Favreau is basically over, they're going to drag this out and make it last as long as possible.
I think it'll get abandoned. I really do. I think the fans are starting to already exit the doors.
I don't have any doubt about that. And that's where my fan brain comes in. And that hurts. You know, Star Wars, I love it. We have a channel dedicated to it. Star Wars, because it's been so poorly mismanaged, is on the operating table, and it's not looking good. You know, and that's just where we are. There's going to have to be some drastic improvement for it to be fixed.
So I've been thinking about this, and I'm taking into consideration that I missed it with Gina Carano. I mean, I did article after article on Gina Carano. I had a lot of readers, and I tried to nail down how badly this would hurt Disney, and I underestimated, in my opinion, the effects. So when I throw this number out, just understand, I missed it the first time. I'm going to try and figure this out. I think that by them holding on to the sequel trilogy and continuing with that, and perhaps continuing with Kathleen Kennedy and her vision for Star Wars, I think the damage is that they have right now probably 20 to 30% of the audience they would have otherwise. Mm-hmm. That's how bad I think it is. Does that sound kosher to both of you?
It does.
Yeah, no, it does.
And that's, I mean, they don't want money. That's what you have to conclude at this point. They don't like money.
And Pro, there's gonna come a time where it's gonna be too late. Like if they go ahead and move forward with what you broke, you know, several weeks back,
the Rey story.
If that is what happens and that flops and fails, going back in the retcon, it's too late at that point. I don't think you could fix it that far down the line. You got to fix this thing like now. If you're going to save, you know, this franchise.
Yep, I'm fully on board with you. I don't think they're going to do it. So, all right, folks. Well, that's our very positive and happy video. We hope you had a great time. All right, final thoughts, Michelle. I know I said I'd give the final word to Coach, but that's just not appropriate. Let me give it to you. What do you got
on Star Wars specifically?
Well, anything. I mean, you can talk about those Mickey waffles you wish they'd send you so you can change your opinion on this.
Oh, well, I like Coach. It's sad that things are where they are right now in this world because I grew up loving this world. I say basically there's two things I can't remember life without, Jesus and Star Wars.
There you go.
And it's like it's been a big part of my life, but it is like the love is just not there. And I have thought for a while that the Gina thing would crush it because even for me, I love the character. I really grew to love the character of Mando and Grogu. But when they go to Navarro and she's not there, you're like, dang, you were just slapped with it in the first episode of just like basically why Gina resonated so much was because we'd come out of such a stressful time. And it basically told 50% of the audience, we don't value you. We don't we find you abhorrent or whatever word they used over Gina Carano. Yep.
That's the word.
And I think the damage is it's done.
And we got traded out. Was it Babu Frick? Is that the name of the little character?
Yes, Babu Frick.
So we got Babu Frick instead of Cara Dune. How's that for a trade-off?
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
Yes, you can find us at Force of Light, my sister's my co-host, Force of Light Entertainment on YouTube and Twitter and Instagram. So check us out.
We've got link in the description. Coach, where can people find you?
You could find us at Echo Base Network. I'm one half of the channel. I run the channel with my best friend of 32 years, I think.
You say Rian Johnson, I'm out. You say Rian Johnson, so help me.
Oh, no. He's basically pretty much the opposite of Rian Johnson, I promise you.
All right, folks, if you've enjoyed content like this, make sure you click the like button, share, subscribe. You can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Make sure that you drop a comment. We actually care about what you think. We do read them. And don't forget, March 23rd, that's when we are launching The Pro Show, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Thursdays, Eastern Time. That's live. We'll see you there. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.